What's going on, guys? Welcome to another BioDevils podcast. On this one, we're going to be discussing the Thief series. Unfortunately, we weren't really able to get too many people on for this one, so it's just going to be myself, KaptainKaos, and DevilHunterJames.
Hey everyone, how's it going? We were originally going to have Divik, but unfortunately he had to take care of some personal business, so he couldn't make it.
Yeah, so it's just going to be on one-on-one for this one. But as always, we do have a list of questions, and I guess we'll start with the first one, which is going to be pretty much the most obvious question, I guess. Like, how did you get in, or how did you first learn about the Thief series? I'll go ahead.
Sure.
I actually started with the worst game, actually. So, the reboot.
Oh God.
And I learned about the older games later. So then I started playing those, and it was just obviously just night and day in comparison, in terms of just the gameplay mechanics and like the setting and the also just the of course how the main character was written. I mean, of course you still have technically it's Garrett, I guess, in the reboot, but it's really not
the same character.
But yeah, I of course I also heard other people on YouTube talk about it, so I figured like, okay, I'll check it out. And it took me a while to get used to it, but after I really got used to how the game worked, I fell in love with it. I really like the setting. I like the steampunk setting. I like Garrett as a character. He's just a really fun character. Like it's just like he's not strong, so you have to rely on sneaking around. You can't fight the guards or anything like that. So there's just, usually I end up, of course, bonking them on the back of the head with the blackjack, but there's various different ways you can approach. Yeah, but there is various different ways you can approach, taking out the guards or just sneaking by them. You could just completely go ghost, although that is pretty difficult. But I like that about it. And of course, just the I really like, we're going to bring this up later too, but I also like a lot of the horror elements the game has, like the zombies and the ghosts, and also the pagan cults. Is pretty interesting with that.
Telling Dom about them, like it's an aspect you might like for it.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, it has a lot of horror in it.
I think Dom and some others would probably, like, if they knew about that part of the game, they'd probably want to get into it. Although, of course, Thief 2 kind of does away with some of that, but the Dark Project and, of course, Thief Deadly Shadows kind of has a lot of that.
2 has its own. It airs more on the steampunk style.
2 leans
of horror.
much more into the steampunk.
Yeah, it's not as traditional as the Dark Project or Deadly Shadows.
Yeah, but of course that was how I first got into Thief. I will be honest, I actually did like the reboot, but that was before I played the older games, and then I was like, okay, yeah, the reboot is definitely not as good as I once thought it was. But yeah, you how did you first learn about the series, James?
Mine is kind of similar. I learned it from a YouTuber named Threadbare Inc. I was just watching Let's Plays at the time more often. I was like, oh, I've heard about Thief from other people, but I've never watched it or seen it, so why not watch a Let's Play? I was like, damn, this game looks really hard, and I like stealth games, so I don't know if I'll try it. So I just recently worked up the courage to actually try it for myself. I beat the Dark Project and the Middle Age, and I'm still working on Thief 3. I've kind of been postponing it because of freaking COVID, because that's always fun.
Yeah, Thief 3 is a bit of, like, I guess you'd say somewhat of the black sheep of the series, because it's technically, I guess, from a different, it's Ion Storm and not Looking Glass.
Surprisingly, most of the developers from Looking Glass did work on Thief 3. They tried to get as many of them as they could.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of ways in which it's different, but it's also, I feel like it retains a lot of the important elements of Thief.
I like most of the changes I actually like, and I think with a more refined engine and more dev time, it would have turned out a little better. But I still like it. It still feels like Thief to me.
Yeah. It's funny because, as you'll see in some of the gameplay I have in the background, there is some glitches I ran into when I was playing.
Did you jump and get stuck floating in the air? Because I hate that one.
Yes.
That one sucks.
Yeah, that one. It happens quite consistently too. I've noticed, like, because I was not trying to glitch out, and it happened twice in a row where I just got caught floating.
There's probably a way to fix it, but I just kept reloading because it's like I don't know how to actually fix this issue.
Yeah, I really don't know how to fix it. I had to reload my save. Yeah. But that all being said, I guess we can move on to number 2. In your opinion, how does Thief compare to other games in the stealth genre, and what makes it unique? You can go ahead.
Something I noticed while playing Thief, I realized a lot of Splinter Cell must have came off the back of this game's ideas for this series. Mm-hmm. I thought originally Splinter Cell was the one that really revolutionized the light and dark system. Turns out I was wrong. It's definitely Thief. I have not documented a game earlier than that. And I was kind of surprised at how well it does it for such an old game. Really well done.
I kind of thought about that myself too, because when I played Thief, I thought about Splinter Cell. I'm like, yeah, that's the other game. And then you play
the older, like the earlier Splinter Cells. You're like, oh, it has the light dark meter. Especially, it feels the most prevalent in Chaos Theory. I'm like, oh, this. Now I'm thinking about this. Chaos Theory has a lot of Thief elements. It has the light, dark, even the noise meters there, which actually Thief doesn't have. Also, Thief does not have a noise meter. You kind of have to work it out on your own. What certain surfaces are louder than others. You kind of have to figure that out for yourself.
Yeah, in a way it does, because you got to realize which surfaces are louder than others and try to accommodate for that. But it has the taking out lights thing too, and Splinter Cell.
I didn't even think about it, even though the water arrow is so iconic for the series. I did not think about that connection until now. Wow. Well, at least Ubisoft took a good idea from a good series, so can't fault them for it. Yeah,
and also the fact that Chaos Theory has more dynamic lighting and shadows, such as with
all 3 of them
Thief,
pretty much
Deadly
have
Shadows. It. Yeah. Although it's more noticeable in Deadly Shadows, I feel maybe just because of the enhanced graphics, but I just tend to notice that more. They
like to do a lot of volumetric lighting, which I thought was actually pretty nice.
Yeah, I feel like in visually actually, Deadly Shadows has aged fairly well, and graphically it's dated, but it in terms of the lighting and shadows, I mean it's still like very impressive to look at. So. In my opinion, how it compares to the other games in the stealth genre, it's probably one of the best stealth games I've played. I mean, I've played Splinter Cell. I've played a little bit of Metal Gear. I'm sure a lot of people are probably going to have Metal Gear at the top of their list. I don't know. I like Metal Gear, but it's never been like a personal favorite of mine.
I've always controversially said I like Metal Gear, but I feel like people wank it more because of the story, because gameplay it's okay.
Yeah.
But as a stealth game, there are definitely stealth games that are much more in-depth and interesting than Metal Gear.
Yeah, I honestly in terms of stealth games, I mean, but I have not played. There have been other games I haven't played. I've been meaning to play, such as the Tenchu series. So I don't really know how it compares to that. Splinter Cell, I don't know. In terms of my personal ranking, I would honestly say I like Thief the best, just because, and honestly, a lot of that is just because I am somewhat biased, because I like the steampunk setting and I like a lot of the other elements of it as well as the stealth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say it's my personal favorite. Splinter Cell would probably be a close second. That's probably how I'd rank it. But what makes it unique to me, like I've mentioned before, is just I really like the mixing of the steampunk elements as well as with the supernatural stuff, and also just Garrett as a character is there's other characters like him, but he's just he's just a fun character.
He's got his own brand.
I like that he just
dry humor, which I like.
He doesn't really take certain situations seriously. He's not out to save the world or anything like that. He doesn't have any lofty ideals or ambitions. He's pretty much just out for himself.
Yeah, the first mission is just I need to pay my rent. So him being a thief is actually his job. Of course, he won't tell
he just kind of so happened. Yeah, he just kind of so happened to get caught up with the whole I guess I just kind of so happened to end up saving the world, in the Dark Project. When he gets caught up with the pagan cult and the trickster,
he ends up getting a personal stake in it, whether he wanted to or not.
Yeah, Yeah, so that's the only reason why that that happened the way it did, which
otherwise
I
he's
thought was
literally
in a way kind of funny.
Otherwise he's literally just a common criminal that's just so happens to be good at his job.
Yeah. Yeah, like he's obviously like, yeah, he's a bad guy, but he's likable, like, and that's the important thing. Like he's technically like, yeah, he's not a good person, but that doesn't matter. Like, you know, there are characters where like, yeah, they're not good people, but if they can be written well and they're like have a likable, charismatic personality, you don't really care, honestly. That's kind of the case with Garrett. He's more like an anti-hero.
I've always labeled Garrett as neutral just based on the mission objectives, especially if you go into expert, where it really tells you being an, you know, only amateurs kill people. So like maybe this is canonically how Garrett does things. He doesn't kill people.
They do kind of make a point of most of the people he steals from are like kind of not good people.
He kind of Robin Hoods it
don't
too.
care so much.
A lot of rich people he steals from.
Yeah, like a lot of the nobles are just kind of like shady. So, but yeah. So with that being said, we can move on to question number 3. If you want to read that off, James.
Which is the best entry in the series and why? This is a strong debate, usually between Thief 1 and 2. It's been a hard thing for me because 2 is a little like very slightly more refined than 1, but I weirdly like 1. Having more of the horror elements and supernatural stuff. It's weird. A lot of people tend to gravitate towards Metal Age, and I do like the Metal Age games, so get me wrong, they're their own brand of fun for me. But something about the first game, I don't know what it is. Something about it, I just like the way it was set up. I feel like especially if you've never played the series before and you start with 1, the whole horror element kind of comes out of nowhere for some people. They don't really expect it based on like the first mission. Everything seems like, you know, pretty standard fantasy. And then it turns into zombies, undead religious people, ghosts, other monsters. I'm like, I really didn't expect that. I was like, all right, this is not going to be a walk in the park after all. But I like it. That is its own brand of stealth. I guess it kind of turns into stealth horror in certain levels. And I think that's actually an interesting twist. I do not see that in a lot of other stealth games.
Yeah, not to mention you have some levels that are kind of more open than others, and then and not only ghosts and zombies, but there are these kind of like creatures that you end up fighting as well.
It just goes straight up super fantasy land.
Yeah,
they're just they're just demons at this point.
Yeah, or any of the underground areas too. Those also took me a little bit by surprise. Some of the things that end up kind of you have to contend with there, like when you go through the ruins and stuff.
I feel like the best. I don't know if we have a level question on here besides.
We do actually.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's number 5. I was gonna say there's one level. I think it's. I'll say it briefly without like blowing all my load on this question.
Yeah.
What is it? Down in the Bone Horde. I think it's like mission 3 or 4. That is really where the game twists. Like, yeah, there are zombies in the second level in the prison, but that's kind of it, and you don't really deal with them all that much. The next level, I believe, is Down in the Bone Horde, and that is entirely a tomb raiding mission. I was like, okay, there's just no humans here whatsoever. It's just me. And whatever weird monsters, like the Burricks were fun. I like the Burricks. They're like...
sometimes
they're weird. They're like
the thing with the zombies too is that sometimes they're like if you have fire arrows or whatever or exploding arrows, they're not hard to deal with. You can just kill them, but like if you don't, then you better fucking get out of there. You can't really kill them that easily if you don't have those. I don't think
you can chop a limb off, actually, but only certain zombies limbs come off. That you could. And it's also kind of dangerous to do that with them because one hit, especially if you're playing on higher difficulty, will hurt a lot. So it tends not to be worth it.
Can't take a lot of damage. Yeah.
The only other way you have is turning your water arrows into holy arrows.
Yeah. Yeah, and as far as the ghosts go, I don't think you can really do anything about them.
You can kill them.
You can?
Yeah, you can kill
I never really tried.
Kill them in particular.
Okay. Yeah, the ghosts are kind of a pain in my ass most of the time.
We haven't even mentioned the granddaddy of all the horror monsters, the friggin' hammer haunts. Don't get spotted by them; it's over. And they're one of the only enemies that can actually sprint after you, so that makes them extra scary. And they hit like a truck.
We also should mention those creepy ass creature, like what was it, those lizard creatures or whatever that like whenever you deal with the trickster and you're in the woods, those things, because they kind of talk too, and those
lizard
things freak me
creatures,
out.
the ones with the swords.
I think so. It's when you go through the woods, or in the last level specifically. I think I don't know what you would call them, but there are these like humanoid like things that work for the trickster god.
And they talk, right?
And I think they show. Yeah, they talk.
I think,
and they also show up in that level in Thief 2 where you go to meet. I forget her name.
Victoria. Yeah, you go to meet the ape beasts. There's a weird thing with that where they look like rats in the first game, and people have theorized that it's because it's the main villain. Because of Constantine, I guess there's something to do with it being a different person controlling them, makes them look different. At least it's what people think, because in the second game, they actually look like monkeys. And they don't have swords. Yeah. So actually, a lot of people think that the guards Constantine had in his mansion turned into the ape beasts, which I could see that. It's pretty interesting, actually. That is the case.
It makes sense.
Yeah, because I just thought they were rat men. I look it up and I'm like, ape beasts? They don't look like monkeys.
Yeah, for some, I don't know why I thought lizards, but yeah, I mean, they were. I just remember they were some weird looking.
Also, fuck the frogs.
Oh yeah, the
exploding
frogs.
the frog beasts are a pain in the ass. And
then you get those later in I think the second game.
Yeah, Victoria
where you
gives you them to help you out. On the friggin' walking bug beast guys or whatever, they are the worst. They are probably the strongest enemy in the first game. You do not want to fuck around with them.
Yeah, there are definitely some enemies in the game you really don't want to try to fight. I mean, you don't want to really try to fight in general, but yeah, some are best left avoided. But I was gonna say, so my favorite entry, it is definitely, I would honestly, for the same reasons as you, have to say the first game, just because like I mentioned, I really like the more supernatural elements. A lot of people are gonna say the second one, and I understand why. But
yeah, people just like to get into a house or a complex and knock out everybody and steal everything. I get it. Yeah. Understandable.
So for me, in terms of the rankings, like I would have to say like 1, 2, and 3 actually. So like for me, like I like the first one the best. Second one is very close second. And then Deadly Shadows.
3 is literally held back by a slight jank with the engine. Because if you remove the jank and it played like the first two, I might have went like 1, 3, 2.
I really did like the kind of like open world approach to the third game, but it was kind of also held back by some technical limitations at the time. So they kind of split up areas with those like portals you go through. I kind of wish they didn't do that. It is kind of annoying because it sort of breaks immersion a little bit when you have to go through these mist portals that breaks up these areas. But I did like that about the third game. And it also has like which we're going to talk about later, but it has like, in my opinion, one of the best levels in video games.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I don't even, obviously the Thief reboot goes at the very bottom. Like, I guess if I were to rank that one too, we'll talk about that one later, because there are some things I actually do like that they included in the reboot, but it couldn't save it.
Yeah, we'll get to that part.
So moving on to number 4, thoughts on Garrett as a protagonist. I feel like we kind of answered this already a little bit.
What else I say? I like that he's a practical person. That's something you don't see a lot.
Yeah,
it's very practical. He's here for his money. He's not here to get involved in stuff, but inevitably he's going to.
Yeah, like we really don't get too much about Garrett. He's very mysterious in a lot of ways too. But I mean, the little things you do get about him is makes him more interesting. But they do also, I feel like they expand on his character a lot more in Deadly Shadows as well, and like his relationship with the Keepers. And I do want to say that like they kind of give you a lot more about, I think, the Keepers in Deadly Shadows than they do in the first 2 games, because they kind of mention the Keepers in the first 2, but they don't really.
Yeah, they've always been in the background for the Thief games. Like you meet and see them in the first 2 games in cutscenes, but they're not a very focused on faction compared to the Pagans or the Hammerites.
Yeah, and I mean, even though they do give us a little bit more in the third game, it still feels like the only thing we really get is like, yeah, they're an organization that kind of like overlooks things, and you know they're
like a neutral observating type of party. I almost choked on my words on that one.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I kind of wish we'd gotten, I mean, even though, 3 does give us more, I kind of wish they would have expanded on that. But I mean, they also do kind of expand on Garrett more as a character in 3 as well, by just showing us like more about like where he lives and his, I guess his whole routine, like who he interacts with in the city.
You kind of just learn like during a lot of Garrett's character development, in my opinion, comes from not just the cutscenes, the like on the spot commentary he gives during a mission, depending on what's going on. You kind of learn about him more from the little quips he spouts out, which, you know, more Steve Russell is always good to hear. So I'm always happy to hear him say something.
Yeah, I mean, that and all the notes he leaves, you know, he leaves you have to read during missions.
Even the map stuff too tells something about him. The way he has to draw out a lot of the maps. If he can't get somebody to give him one, he kind of has to do it on his own.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's not too much to say there. Mostly because, like I said, Garrett, like I do like the things we get about him as a character, but I do like the way he's written in that, you know, there's quite a bit about him that is still left kind of ambiguous, which I think is for the best, honestly.
Art style helps too with that. The way the cutscenes are done, you don't really see his face that much until Deadly Shadows, for the most part.
Yeah, I should have had some kind of question about the art style. It's because I actually really like that about the game too, like how it really has this very specific kind of, I don't know what you call it, like a painterly sort of art style. Like the cutscenes aren't done in a typical, like, at least in the first.
Yeah, it's like a mix of like this very abstract dark, because they try to keep a lot of things dark in the cutscenes on purpose. Yeah, they do live action, which I thought was cool. Like anytime you see them, the characters actually moving and walking and it looks natural, it's because it's live action.
Yeah, either that or they were doing some kind of mocap, I guess. But I mean, I did like how Deadly Shadows tries to keep that as well, because like at least they didn't try to do anything different there. They still try to keep those cutscenes more or less the same in that regard. Although you do have more, like, I guess you would say, cutscenes that are more, I guess, in-engine.
Actually, I think 3 is the most you hear Garrett talk, because he has very lengthy intro monologues for each mission that he's going to do. He has quite a lot to say before they start off.
Maybe that could be because 3 is a little bit more, I guess you'd say, story focused than the first 2 games. It feels like they're trying to have more of a plot, or I guess more Garrett being more, I guess, actively involved in the plot. And I guess that could have something to do with maybe the keepers being more involved too.
Could be. Oh, you know, we didn't really put the factions on this list. I just realized that.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I just realized it now. Like, shit, they're quite an interesting part of the whole game story. So
yeah, we can go over that real quick. So yeah, I do remember, like, there's what was it? The pagans, the Hammerites, the obviously the keepers.
And I guess the mechanists count.
Right, yeah, the mechanists from 2. Yeah, that's another interesting thing about the Thief series is these, you know, you have these different factions in the background that there's kind of a power struggle happening between them. In the first one, it's more so the Hammerites versus, I guess, the pagan cult. And then in the second one, you have the addition of the mechanists that come in and kind of just completely take over. And
yeah, they like dismantle most of the hammers.
The Hammerites?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so they kind of like completely take over and dismantle the Hammerites and the pagans as well. The pagans also, like,
they pretty much
from
converted
Victoria.
Yeah, they pretty much converted the hammers for the most part. That's why you hear a lot of the hammers saying that their numbers have been dying off thanks to the mechanists. Most of them have turned to Harris.
Yeah, which I thought was an interesting thing. But in the third game, like, they all kind of come back. I think, you know, you have the pagans and
3 they're back to normal, because you obviously beat the mechanists in 2, and then, well, I mean, where are the religious guys going to go? Back to what they know.
Pretty much. Yeah, but I do like that about the game, like the little bit of information. You know, you do get some information about each different faction and like what they believe and, you know, how they operate, I guess.
I'm trying to think. If I had to pick a favorite fact, I might say the Hammerites. I just like their dialogue so much. It's so weirdly charming. I'm not even a religious person, but something about them is just enjoyable.
Well, I find the guards' dialogue in general kind of funny. It's pretty good. Like, I mean, just the random dialogue you can just listen to. That's another appealing thing about Thief, is that you could just kind of like hear them have these full-on conversations about different things.
They also like to speak very old-timey. Yeah. It's a weird contrast I never thought about. Garrett talks like he's just a normal, like, modern-day person for the most part. Meanwhile, the Hammerites talk like they're like 6 centuries backward. And the pagans it's kind of weird. Funny. Like, I don't even know what to say about the pagans. They just speak weird.
Yeah, the pagans have definitely a weird way of speaking. But yeah, that's another interesting tidbit about that is some characters in the game, especially like a lot of the other characters, they speak more like they have certain old-timey ways of speaking, and then we also have the word taffer, which is something that was kind of made up for the game, which is like a slur or some kind of slur for the Thief series.
It's supposed to mean like low life. It's supposed to mean like low life or criminal or something like that. Because I looked it up and I was like, okay, that makes sense. They're just calling you a bum. Gotcha.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, I think we can move on to interesting question. The best level or levels in the Thief games?
Really? That's a lot. That's kind of a loaded question, to be honest. I mentioned Down in the Board, I think, is a good one because it's your first proper introduction to supernatural stuff in the Dark Project. Whether you like it or not, too, is going to make or break you on that one, because that is partially the reason why Thief 2 isn't heavy on supernatural stuff outside of the steampunk side. Mostly because people complained. It was very, from what I've been researching, is very down the middle, whether people like the supernatural stuff or just wanted to focus on getting to a compound and deal with guards and steal stuff and call it a day. I don't know. Personally, I wish 2 had more of a balance. Admittedly, as much as I like the supernatural stuff, it does get a bit overbearing in 1 sometimes. Although,
especially like midway through the game or in the latter half.
As soon as you go, I think the Haunted Cathedral might be one of the best levels for supernatural stuff. It's pretty much got everything.
Yeah, that one's kind of on my list too, to be honest, just because of all the ghosts.
Everything. Hammer haunts, ghosts, zombies, everything. The barracks are there. I think there's these... They scared the shit out of me. You know those on fire robe guys?
I think so.
The freaking... they're like fire spirits. I have a name. They're
I think I know
very rare spirits you find that are on fire, and if you take them down, they like sprint around like they're bugged out, and it scared the crap out of me because enemies do not typically move quickly, and they're trying to get away from you, but terrifying. I fought him in such a confined space that he just ends up like moving like lightning around the room, and it scared the shit out of me because I really didn't expect any enemy in this game to move faster than Garrett. But he moves like 10 times my speed. I thought you were going to say
he just like ran right at you.
I thought he was. I actually jumped out of my chair. I was the first enemy, and pretty much the only enemy that not only outruns you, but runs and jitters around. It's very weird, even compared to the other supernatural enemies. There's no enemies besides like the hammer haunts that can sprint after you and actually make you run away. For the most part, like the guards can chase you, but they're kind of dumb and slow in a lot of respects. So. They're not typically that threatening, easily get away unless they have a bow and arrow. The guards are pretty freaking good shots.
Yeah, I've noticed that. But yeah, so like, the ghosts to me are kind of freaky just because of the if you just kind of try to sneak around the ghosts, you just hear them whispering and stuff.
The audio really sells it for the horror stuff. I feel like we didn't really talk about that. The audio is like the star of the Thief series. If it's not the light and darkness.
Yeah, that's another way in which it can be kind of freak you out because Thief has a very is very good with the audio, and it kind of has to be because it's a stealth game. But when it comes to the horror elements, audio is something else that's very is very important when it comes to horror, survival horror games and stuff. And because Thief is very much trying to prioritizes the audio. Whenever you run into the supernatural elements, it just really enhances the experience in terms of, in that regard.
Even the zombies
but
weird me out occasionally, and I don't expect it, and all of a sudden they moan out of left field. I'm like, Jesus! First of all, they're loud.
Yeah,
they're
sometimes
loud
I wouldn't think there's any zombies around that I just hear them. Yeah, make those noises.
Such a pest.
But so for me, like some of the best levels, like like you said, the haunted cathedral level in the first game. And then like in the second game, I think it was one of the levels where you infiltrate that party, or it's like in a mansion or
Life
something.
of the Party.
The Life of the Party. Yeah, I like that one.
Probably a lot of people's favorites for that game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and also the last level in Thief 1 where you're trying to where you try to sabotage the trickster god's plan.
The Maw of Chaos or whatever it's called. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also the level where you actually get, you kind of get betrayed at the end of it by the trickster god, the one where you have to get the sword. Like that one was memorable to me because of how weird. I mean, a lot of levels are pretty weird, but I mean that one's pretty weird too.
But he doesn't betray you till
the one where he hired you, or you didn't know who the client was
on you. Okay, so the escape mission. That's interesting. It's a lot of people are very mixed on escape.
It's the one where you got to get the sword. But that one was weird to me because of the layout of the mansion and how it kept changing. Oh,
that's okay. That's an earlier really level. Surreal. I think the mission's literally called the sword. I'm pretty sure.
That one was just a weird one. I want to put like a least favorite level on here too. The very last level of the second game. I agree. I don't really like it. It's too long. It's annoying because of all the
fetch questy.
I don't like those mechanical things. Like, I mean, I could deal with them in the game, but there's so many of them in I think it was Sacrifice at Soulforge. There's so many of them that you got to deal with. And at certain points, like I kind of gave up stealth at certain points and kind of just ran for it because like I didn't want to have to deal with trying to sneak around those things.
I forget the name of the level in Thief 2 where you go to I guess it's again a cathedral, but it's this time it's with the mechanists. And you get to see how Karis experiments on people. You get like the weird people that like laugh when you knock them out.
Oh yeah.
And all they're doing is they say like all this creepy stuff and they're like out of their minds. And I was like, oh, there's some horror.
Yeah,
literally people tortured they want to die basically. I'm like, oh, this got dark again all of a sudden.
Yeah. And also another favorite level of mine, of course, I got to put in Shelbert Cradle from the third game. That was just because of how fucking terrifying that level is.
I haven't gotten to it yet, but I've seen a Let's Play of it, so I know what I'm expecting.
They basically quadruple down on the supernatural stuff, which is why a lot of people say it's like some of the best horror. I guess, horror that video games have to offer, even though Thief isn't a horror game. But it's basically like you go into an insane asylum, I guess. And, there are these things walking around you got to avoid. And there's ghosts. So
they go full on the atmosphere.
Pretty much, yeah.
Which is saying something considering the first game was so heavy on it.
Yeah. But yeah, so... I guess we can probably move on to number 6 if you want to. Well, actually, it's funny because
there was one other level I wanted to mention. That it's the other half of the cathedral where you have the eye, which is the item that you're trying to get for Constantine. I do not like that level. Weirdly enough, it goes on for too long. It's the level when you have the eye and you need to get out, but you can't leave the way you come in this time. It's after you get all the talismans.
Okay.
That level is such a pain in the ass. If you're on higher difficulty, they want you to kill all pretty much all the hammer haunts. So that's fun. I think what it boils down to is you have to get a bomb. Like you're helping this ghost, this Hammerite ghost, and you're doing tasks for him to help him lay to rest, and in return he'll show you a way out of here. And he ends up saying, oh, we lost the key a while ago, but the thing you're looking for is in the church attic. So you go back, and it's a freaking bomb. And I was like, I did not expect them to have constructed like this this proximity bomb that you could set off with a fire arrow, and it blows the door down, lets you leave. But that whole process of it's a very long fetch questy thing, and I didn't know you could skip out with a glitch, and I would have done it soon because, like, Jesus. At first, I liked the level because it's just more creepy supernatural stuff, but then it drags on a bit long. So that's about it.
There are some levels like that, unfortunately. There's kind of, I feel like they should have been over like a while ago, and then they just kept going.
If they cut the priest task in half, I would have said it's better for it. He has like 10 things for you to do. It's like, bro, what else do you need me to do? I did the ritual. I put you in the grave. Let me leave already. Like, Jesus.
I'm not sure if it was Thief 1 or Thief 2, but there's like a level where you go into a casino-like place, and it's just this long. It ended up being much longer than I thought it was.
For Thief Gold specifically, they added
Okay.
They added the not the Assassin Guild. You do follow assassins that try to kill you in that level. I think it's just called the Guild. Yeah, it is a very long level. One of my friends in our group actually watched me do that level, and it took me like 2 hours plus.
Yeah, because I easily got lost at some point.
Well, here's the fucked up part. I found out wherever to go for the whole thing. Like, I knew, like, I've been through the whole area. Problem is, I forgot to push a switch on the wall that is hidden behind a panel. That unless it highlights, you don't know it's there. It just looks like the rest of the wall, so you wouldn't know. And I guess that's something Thief is good at. Bit of a double-edged sword, because it's one of those things when you first start out, it's kind of frustrating figuring out all the secrets, as good as the secrets are. But I would say it's something you appreciate after the frustration of finding it.
Yeah, basically, because like that's also one thing I kind of had to contend with, and you guys will probably see that in the gameplay in the background, although I'll cut some of it out. But I was trying to look for a switch to activate something in the first level.
Yep,
and it was like I looked everywhere in this dude's room, and I was like trying to look for specifically a button, but it's not a button. It's one of those things that holds a torch. You know, it's an unlit.
It's a sconce. You have to like twist it. You know, my issue with that level was I was in the wrong room. I interpreted the map wrong, and I was like, oh, this isn't even his freaking room. No wonder I can't find the switch.
Yeah, I kind of had that problem with the map too. So I kind of had to like figure out where his room was, and I eventually figured it out. But yeah, you kind of that's one of the annoying aspects of Thief.
I guess
sometimes I think.
For levels too, might as well mention it with Thief 3. It's kind of hit or miss for some people whether you like the more linearity and the smaller scaled down levels, because Thief has some pretty big levels. First two games, they could take quite a while when you first start out, but Thief 3, they're decent, but they're definitely a lot smaller than the previous games. So that is, you might like that aspect, or you might not. Some people prefer the sprawling levels. I generally do, but I will say Thief 3 at least condenses things down, and it still feels Thief, so it's not too bad. And they still managed to have all the confusing secrets, so I guess they did their job right.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things that still feel like Thief, even though it's more linear and scaled down in comparison to the first two games. But yeah, so question number 6. I guess I'll read this one. While Thief is not exactly a horror game, it definitely has some horror elements. Were there any levels such as Shellbridge Cradle that actually scared you?
I guess we could mention elements in the levels instead, since we kind of touched on it.
Yeah, we did kind of we did go over that with certain levels in the Thief games.
I already mentioned the fire spirit thing scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, I did mention already. I was gonna save it for this question, but yeah, like the ghosts. It's more just the sounds, like the sounds the ghosts make, the weird, like the whispering and all that. You know, just, it makes.
They always sound like they're saying that.
Oh yeah, that too. Just the weird noises, basically. Like it's just like it makes you just not want to be around them. Like it's just like but you're just kind of forced to stay there until they leave.
It turns into like a very survival, like I don't want to say survival horror, but more like a very isolated, oppressive atmosphere type of deal. Since Garrett works alone generally, so you're always by yourself,
right? And it's because you can't really fight them or anything either. You're mostly forced to try to sneak by them. So I mean, it's not like
I would say yes for the most part. You don't really want to fight everything. It very much depends on how much gold you're getting per mission, since you carry gold over from mission to mission. So anyone's wondering, well, why would I bother? What's the incentive to steal things other than for the money? Like, what does the money do? It supplies you for the next mission. And if you don't have a lot of gold, you're kind of shit out of luck and gonna have to just deal with the mission as is and find stuff yourself. And that goes for killing the supernatural too. If you are under equipped, they're an even bigger problem than normal. Your sword only does so much. It doesn't hit ghosts, I don't think. Hammer haunts, unless you get them in the back, you're in trouble. And there's a couple. Zombies are so obnoxious. They take 1,000,000 hits to even down. And even if you take a limb off, they're still probably alive. Like, they're very hard to kill without the right equipment. So I guess that's another incentive for the first game, at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, and I mean, not to mention just, I feel like the atmosphere very much contributes to the, this, you know, kind of the more horror factor of the game, just it being almost always at nighttime. And, you know, you have to conceal yourself in the dark. It also, you know, just all that, I feel like, really much contributes to that. But yeah, I think, the levels that just legitimately scared me is just anything with ghosts. Shellbridge Cradle did kind of get me to some extent, like that actually freaked me out. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Don't really have too much else to say on that one. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we feel like we covered most of it. I guess the only thing I could say,
we did kind of already.
I keep bringing them up. The frigging hammer haunts are just scary too. They have some pretty creepy demonic noises.
Yeah, it's really the noise. It's really just the sounds that really get me the most. Not even so much
the chain sound is so good. Just from them walking around is such a good way to do a sound indicator, since, you know, they don't make the typical footsteps and all that. They're actually a lot louder than the guards.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's just a good sound design for the horror atmosphere. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so number 7. Do you want to read that one off?
How do you feel about Thief 2014, the reboot? How does it compare to previous entries? I mean, we kind of already let the cat out of the bag. It's pretty mediocre. Even if I didn't compare it to Thief and just pretended this was its own thing, it's still a pretty mediocre by the numbers AAA game. I feel like they really just trend followed everything that was going on in 2014.
It's essentially poor man's Dishonored. And I mean, they also have the like those. I hate the thing. I think it was like, I don't know if it was Rise of the Tomb Raider that did this, where they have like that those indicators or those marker, you know, basically like those parts where they paint over stuff to make it so the player knows where to go. I think they kind of did something like that with the reboot, where they had, like, you know, so it's like, you know, it's obvious where you need to go next. I mean, if you thought that Thief 3 was linear, then 2014 takes that to another level.
Yeah.
2014, that was one of the main issues I had with 2014 reboot, is it really doesn't give you any options when it comes to how you're going to approach a level or anything like that. You know,
it's completely contrasting the other 3 games in the series. Like all the Thief games.
It's like a main staple of the franchise. Like I mean, it just really contradicts what it's
like.
About.
There's a central way to go, but Thief always gave you enough options to handle it a certain way, like on your own. Mostly player agency. There is no agency in 2014. Which is a complete antithesis of how the other games were designed.
Like, I will say, like, there's one positive thing I'll say. At least, like, it felt like they tried to keep the same kind of, I guess, atmosphere and, I guess, I don't know if you'd say, like, feeling as the other games. Like, it to some extent, it does, like, it feels like they were trying.
I guess.
It's more like a shallow imitation, if anything, I guess. You know, because it's like you can recognize, like, okay, I can see they were trying to make it feel like a Thief game, but it just didn't get, they just didn't get there. Because they have stuff like, you know, they're the asylum level, like they were trying to do Shellbridge Cradle again, but just
it makes a lot less sense in that game as well. It doesn't really work.
Yeah. Also, just the you know, we have the other problem of this new Garrett just really doesn't feel like Garrett.
don't even have Steve Russell, so they replaced his voice actor in the game for some. Who knows why?
They said it was so that they said because they wanted it to be the same actor that did the mocap for Garrett in the reboot. I don't know. It didn't make sense to me.
I mean, he's not a bad actor. It's just not. It's kind of a thing of like, I could replace like Master Chief. I could replace his voice, for example, right? Pick an iconic character. I could replace his voice. Look, actor is still competent, but I know it's not Master Chief, and it takes you right out. It's one of those things where someone nails it the first time down, and then they do it consistently, and it's like you don't want to hear it any other way. It just works with the one actor.
Yeah, my thing is you either get someone who sounds almost exactly like Steven Russell, or you get Steven Russell. Like, there's not any in between, honestly. Like,
as far as I've seen,
Garrett's has such an iconic
It's
voice.
not like he said no or anything. They just didn't ask him.
Yeah, he wanted to do it. They didn't. Yeah, they did want to have him on. And then we have like the issue with like whatever they were trying to do with the story. I have no idea what they. I think one of the worst parts about it was the insertion of I think her name was Erin.
Yeah, the chick who's supposed to be with, like, I don't know what she even is to Garrett.
For some reason, why? Yeah, that's the thing that confused me. Like, and yet the story focused around her, and I was wondering why. Like, they never why is she so important? We never get any explanation.
She also They also do things with her that make me. I don't know if they were intentionally trying to make me dislike her. But if you come off the heels of the other Thief games, she does a lot of things that you would not do. Like, just start murdering guards, for example. Like, yeah, you can on normal, but like, the series actively encourages you not to kill people. It's also a lot easier to just bonk them over the head. Garrett even mentions it when she does it. Like, what are you doing? He was barely older than you. And she's like, oh, it's the wrong place, wrong time. Like, what? It's not what a professional wouldn't just start murdering all these people. At least by Thief's logic, a professional does not go around mass murdering people.
And it was also her own stupidity that got her into that pretty much it was I guess like whatever the hell happened to her got her to like fuse with the primal or whatever the hell that thing was called.
A crappy replacement for the eye excuse, as I feel like it was anyways. But not nearly as compelling.
The story was just a mess with the game. I mean, it's just the game was. I really want to pretend it doesn't exist. That's it's just if it wasn't a Thief game, it would just be an average, mediocre, stealth game that everybody would forget about. It's just that it has the Thief title that is the only reason why it's even probably to this day, I guess, still to some extent talked about.
I mean, the graphics look good. I'll give it that much. That's probably the only thing about it that's good is the graphics. Like, those have aged pretty well. However, there's one aspect we have not talked about. Well, we kind of touched on the freedom bit, but have you noticed in playing that game, every single stupid thing is a cutscene. Anything you do, knock someone out, pick up something, open a window, everything is a freaking cutscene, and it's obnoxious.
Yeah, like whenever you knock somebody out with the blackjack, isn't it going?
It goes into a cutscene of you knocking them out, and you can get caught doing that because you can't move. Another genius design. Yeah. I don't know why they did this. And then they made Garrett a klepto. Like, just the things you steal are very weird.
He steals literally everything. So, which is weird because like in the third game, like it even tells you like, there are some things you just don't steal. But then in this game, you steal
a brass fork or something. Like, I don't think Garrett would ever steal this. Like, if it was like a what's an example of something that you'd use every day? Maybe kind of sort of back then. You could see like a gold. There's like a chalice made of gold. There's plenty of like these things that they use, like goblets and stuff like that nobles have. That makes more sense. Stealing their freaking kitchenware is stupid.
It's stuff that's not valuable. Like, why would you steal it? I don't know. It was so dumb.
There's such a thing as too much.
But
even a rope arrow. You can't. I just remembered you can't even use a rope arrow in that game unless the game wants you to use it there.
There are only specific places where you could use the rope arrow.
It's not even organic. Like in the previous games, if anything that's a wooden surface that's on a wall or on a ceiling, you could stick a rope arrow there and you could climb it. then Thief 4 you
it
have to only do it where the developers say you can. It's really dumb.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's just the problem with the reboot is just that it doesn't trust the play. It just limits the player. There's no freedom.
No agency for yourself, which, again, I keep saying it's a complete contrast to the way the other games are designed. It's not following the basic design philosophy that the other games have.
Yeah, exactly.
And freedom is probably the number one most important part of the series.
Yeah. But that all being said, I think we can probably move on to question 8. Thoughts on Embracer Group acquiring the IP? Could we see the series return in some form? I think that's probably for the best that happened, honestly, because I don't think Square Enix was going to do anything with it. I mean, they probably just let it sit for however long. So, I mean, I don't know. Has Embracer Group stated that they might want to
They've teased the idea for Thief, Legacy of Kain, because they got that from Square recently. Which
Legacy of Kain's another one that's kind of been sitting around for years and
the freaking
done anything with
masterpiece off topic, but a masterpiece franchise just sitting around. All it needs is a graphical and somewhat of a gameplay quality of life update. Like everything else is a masterpiece. I don't know why it's been sitting around for 20 years doing nothing.
And we also have an incomplete Adam Jensen trilogy for Deus Ex that would have had a third game if not for, I forget which game it was, but like they said they were going to do another game, but it ended up being sacrificed for something else. So yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll get to conclusion to that. I just want the third game to happen because I mean, Mankind Divided kind of just left us on a bit of a cliffhanger. Yeah, in a way. But yeah, like I feel like the thing that really needs to happen is they need to get people who know what they're doing, people that are experienced with the stealth games in general and know about Thief. Maybe if they could even somehow, I mean, I don't even know if they're still in the industry, but get like former Looking Glass Studios devs.
I guess they would be Ion Storm, even though Ion Storm went defunct after Thief 3 and Deus Ex. So I think they worked on Deus Ex, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. It's hard to say. Like, I really feel like I said, they need to get people who care about this, doing the series justice, I guess is the best way to put it.
It doesn't, I would say it doesn't even have to be, it doesn't even have to be Looking Glass. Like, yeah, you could, like, you've seen, I don't think we have it here, but the Dark mod is an example of the fans definitely understand what people like about the series. It's this whole thing where you could make it's based off like this updated Unreal like dark engine combo thing that they pulled off. I think it was Doom 3, wasn't it? It was based on the Doom 3. Doom 3's engine, but it's so heavily modified for the light dark mechanics and the general stealth that Thief has. It works pretty well. Yeah. It's basically custom Thief mission. Some people put a lot of effort, make stories out of it and all this other stuff. So clearly people still understand how Thief works. It's just getting developers themselves to make the game. I mean, hell, there's even like fan story mods, or just different fan mods for Thief 2. So I mean, people are still making mods for that game. I know of Shadow of the Metal Age. It's like the only one I'm aware of. Yeah, that's the one. It's that one, and then there's some other ones I know of, but yeah, I mean, just people who are in general, like maybe even just fans, they could do something with that. But I mean, I don't know. I hope it comes back. As long as it's not another instance of Thief 2014, that's my whole thing. But there must be some. I don't know about compromise, but there needs to be an understanding of the way Thief works, the way it does, because it controls quite well. But it controls a very specific way where it never wrestles control away from you. That's something that needs to be very heavily emphasized. Unless it's a cutscene for the story, I don't need the game to rip the control out of me to watch Garrett do something or whatever. Like it really shit. I cannot stand it. Yeah, it really just should feel like a very heavily like updated version of. Probably, most likely, just I would say Deadly Shadows. Deadly Shadows still has the same blueprint. Just the only thing I would say that they would have to do though, probably the movement. As much as I like Deadly Shadows, it is very janky to control Garrett, even with some modding. because there are, of course, fans that have tried to fix the game up. Even with that, the first 2 games control significantly better than 3.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'll read off the next question too, because it is related.
Shoot.
In regards to the previous question, if the series returns, should it be in the form of a remake of one of the old games or a sequel? I would definitely like to see maybe I'd be fine actually with the original games getting like a remake, but
I'd be fine with it.
So I guess I'm fine with both. I guess both to an extent, but I guess the question of like if we're talking about a sequel, like
there was a sequel. I know there was a sequel. They were supposed to. They did pitch Thief 4. I remember this because I've read about it on the Thief Reddit for a while. Because I was curious. I tried to research for the podcast. There was a Thief 4, and it didn't get very far. They tried to pull a thing, and you probably wouldn't like this, Chaos, as I didn't like the way I was reading it.
Oh yeah, I think I heard about this.
It's like a modern.
It was be in the
it's like a modern day take. Like it's the same characters, but everyone's in modern day stuff, and I'm like, no. I think I'll try to find it for reference, but I think there's even a little sketch they did for Garrett being a modern day. He just looks like Alex Mercer, and it's weird. It's got the same type of getup with the hood and jeans. I'm like, if this was its different IP, I might say fine, but this is trying to be the same thing. It doesn't work for me. I prefer the the medieval fantasy style instead.
Yeah, same. I feel like if it's a sequel, it definitely needs to retcon Thief 2014. I would be fine if they followed up with Thief Deadly Shadows, if it was maybe a sequel to that.
I would agree
there's
with
some speculation. There is some speculation in regards to, I guess, the final cutscene of Thief Deadly Shadows, where like I guess spoilers because I know you haven't finished it, but
I've seen the end.
There's like like that thing with the little girl. People speculate that was supposed to be Aaron from 2014, although that doesn't make sense. But
that sounds like a big fanfic on that one.
Yeah, I think it's possible as to what they could do with that. See, I'm not opposed to the idea of Garrett maybe like working with somebody or having an apprentice, but they should not do it like they did in Thief 2014. I think that a potential idea of what they could do if they did a sequel is maybe they could do something similar to what they did with Thief 2014, but not make the character who's an apprentice, who's apprenticing under him, which could, I guess, potentially be this girl. Make her actually like a likable character. I'd be fine with that.
Actually, that was an aspect we didn't really bring up with the Keepers when we talk about factions. It's really hard to see the Keepers. Like anybody who's from them, they tend to do a thing where they could like hide from people somehow. I forget if they explain how they like cloak themselves, but you can't unless you're like a special individual or something like that. I forget how the lore goes. You don't like as Garrett put it. Keepers don't usually want to be found, and he mentions it to the little girl because she sees him and tries to pickpocket him. So he's like, the way they frame it makes it look like he's going to turn her into the next like world-class thief type of thing. But they leave it on that. It's like, I wouldn't have minded if she was the next protagonist if Garrett took on a mentor role as I guess the number one keeper, just based on the way the Thief 3 ends. He seems like the most capable one out of them.
That's where I'm thinking they could potentially go with the story if they ever did like a sequel of sorts. But I don't know. I guess like I said, I'm fine with either one if they did a sequel or
I would say
a remake.
Yeah, I would say remake the Dark Project with all the Thief Gold missions because it's more content, whether people like it or not. It is more stuff to do. And it's pretty. I think even looking less like Thief Gold is the canon version now.
Yeah.
I would say redo that. If it goes well, obviously do the Metal Age, redo Thief 3, and then maybe do Thief 4, whatever they were originally planning, or it could be original idea for Thief 4. I don't know.
Yeah.
That one's up in the air, but at least they got to start remaking them to see if people like it first.
Yeah, that might be the best thing to do. Maybe just do like a remake first.
And I would definitely say throw them on consoles this time around, because the consoles are definitely strong enough to handle whatever Thief has in terms of level design. They were primarily PC games in Thief 3. was on the Xbox original, so they had to compromise the design of the game. That shouldn't be an issue in this day and age. The consoles should more than be able to handle Thief's level design.
Yeah, so I mean, they can definitely probably get away with some of the more open areas like they did in the they had in Thief Gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that all being said, we can move on to what was it? Okay, yeah, number 10. And we kind of did touch on this question already, but Stephen Russell is very well known for voicing Garrett. If the series returns, should he come back, or do you think someone else could do the role justice? Yeah, we did kind of talk about this a little bit already. So yeah, with me, it's like, my opinion is either get him to come back, or if you, for whatever reason, you can't get him to come back, you definitely need to get somebody who sounds just as good, which, I mean, I don't know. I don't know who you could get in that regard. Maybe Steve Loam could do it. I don't know. I don't know who else could really do the role justice, honestly.
So go, mega badass Garrett with friggin' Steve Loam.
Yeah.
I mean, he still does stuff, Steve Russell, just according to research. I don't know how old he is, but just looking at him, he doesn't look like he's so old he can't do a voice. Like, I don't think so. Looks like he's in his mid-50s, maybe
I'm sure
60s.
he'd still sound more or less the same. So, I mean,
the last project he did was something in 2019 called Zed. So he's still doing stuff. Oh, he was in Fallout 76 too. So, you know, he still does video game voice acting. So yeah, bring him back. That's clearly capable.
That's funny. That's funny because he was in the original Fallout games too.
Yeah. So I mean, if he's still doing stuff, you know, it's only been a few years since he's last done something, but still, he's clearly capable of still voice acting. We don't even need him to do the mocap either. Somebody else could easily do that for him.
Yeah, exactly. But also, yeah, fun fact. So he also voiced Father Karras in Thief 2, which is I found very interesting because he sounds completely different than Garrett.
They shoved his voice through a blender for that one.
You know what was funny? I thought he sounded like I don't know if you remember that like cartoon dog. I think it was like Droopy or whatever, the old cartoon dog. He kind of sounded like that. And I thought it was the same. I seriously thought of the same guy. It's like, I don't know if he was like trying to do a Droopy impression for Father Karras, but it kind of sounded like it.
Fun fact, he's actually also, I forget his name, Benny the Guard. The guy with the overly loud voice. There's always two voices that like interact, like guard wise for the most part. And they usually play off each other in a lot of missions. They're kind of, I know one of them's Benny. I forget the other one's name, but Benny is also Garrett. And it's another voice he does that sounds completely different, where very loud, overbearing, and obnoxious type of voice, but also funny.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, Stephen Russell has some pretty impressive range, if that's the case.
The fact that I can't tell that's him is pretty good. Karras, I can understand because he's going through this freaking like mega voice filter, so of course I can't tell it's him.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess that all being said, we can go ahead with the our outros then. So I am KaptainKaos, and you can find me on YouTube at KaptainKaos, as well as Twitter at KaptainKaos. You could also find me on Instagram at Enigmatic Arts, where I post my art stuff. And James, if you want to go ahead and do your outros.
You can find me on Twitter at DevilHunterJames, and occasionally I might start doing it, streaming on Twitch at DevilHunterJames as well.
Nice. Well, this is pretty fun. Unfortunately, it was just the two of us, but feel like we were able to get through it a little bit quicker in that way. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time, we will see you all later.
Sayonara.